Good evening, and thank you guys for joining me for EDL 850 Module 14 case study on the Internet use violations. This was a very intriguing case coming out of Slattery Steno High School with all of its splendor and glory in the affluent area that it sits in a large city. And the families are very secured in their financial means. Because of this, it states that the community has, the students possess all of the latest fashion and clothes and technology. And we also know that Dr. Harvey Smith is the principal and is highly regarded in the profession, as he was just awarded the Principal of the Year award a couple years ago. We also know that the principal has recently hired Miss Robin Tate, who was a little bit older, coming out with her bachelor's as well as her master's, and was hired to teach specialized science courses. Miss Tate's classroom management and teaching style we also know that this has created an environment of rigor and high stakes in her classroom, in which students have reported feeling some high levels of stress. We know that students in Miss Tate's classes are always in competition for the highest grades, as they are striving to be valedictorians and really reaching for the highest levels of recognition there. And we also know that Dr. Smith fields a lot of calls from parents saying that, my kids are going to get their first bad grade in high school, right? So in November, as the plot thickens, Miss Tate received an email with a link to a Facebook page that had some comments on there about her personal behaviors and were critical about the environment in her classroom. Also, there was a comment on there that appeared to be a threat to Miss Tate personally. And when asked who she thinks might have done it, Miss Tate stated that she feels that William Hall, based on his classroom behavior, was probably the culprit. What do we need to know in this case? We need to know who the possible players are that are involved and who actually created this website. I think that would be critical to know. We also need to know if any laws may have been broken as the website was created. We need to know what our plan of action is going to be as we, seek to restore Miss Tate's sense of security and safety. We also want to deliver the proper discipline in this circumstance that's going to create a win-win for everybody, as well as an opportunity for a teachable moment. We also need to know if Ms. Tate has filed a police report or is going to file a police report, as that may have other outcomes. So what's the problem? When I look at this situation, I think the root of the problem is that Ms. Tate has an inability to create a classroom that is both high achieving with high relationship. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of content and probably good quality teaching being done in her classroom. And it sounds like, or it appears that this is coming at the expense of building good rapport and sound relationship with the students. And because of this, the students are now kind of pushing back on Miss Tate in her teaching style. And that's where we get the creation of this inappropriate webpage. Because the webpage was created, there has been a rift in the classroom, right? Miss Tate no longer feels safe, and her person feels like she is under attack from the students in the classroom, and the class itself obviously feels isolated or alienated by Miss Tate. So how do we solve this problem? I think first and foremost, we want to print out the hard copies of the website, what's on it. We want to follow up with district technology and see if we can locate the source of the email. And we want to do that and let Ms. Tate know first thing in the morning that, look, this is a high priority for me. I also want to check in with her and just see how she's feeling. Is she in a headspace that's going to allow her to be in front of students? Does she feel safe in our building? Things of that nature. Next, I want to make sure that we meet with Mr. Hall. And we also want to meet with some of his friends as well. I think in doing that, we get an opportunity to get a full picture of what's going on. And then we want to utilize the information we get from those interviews with district technology as well as the kids to come to a conclusion on how to move forward. So the reason why we want to print out those hard copies is to begin the documentation process of what's been placed online, and it will also assist us in the interview process as we're speaking with Mr. Hall and his friends as we try to get to the bottom of who created this webpage. When we follow up with the district technology, the idea is that let's put the experts on this right away. Let's get an answer to the question before we ask the question, and really try to be proactive on that front. Meeting with Mr. Hall, right? We want to get this going before he goes to Miss Tate's classroom. We want to make sure it's in private, to respect, to respect him. And, this could be somewhat of an embarrassing situation. So we want to make sure that we keep his feelings in mind as we do this. And then we also want to make sure that we close the loop of communication back with Miss Tate, as well as follow up with a phone call home to let them know what's going on and what we are investigating school side. Same thing applies for his friends as far as the process, and the idea is to cast that net wide and see who knows what, or see if there's anyone that's willing to talk to us about it. And then as we utilize those interviews in creating our strategy for how we're going to deliver discipline and where that needs to go and to what extent. So how do we resolve this issue? While promoting the academic success and personal well-being of every student, discipline will be handed out to those involved. And I'm thinking a possible 3 to 5 day suspension for inappropriate use of technology and disrupting the learning environment would suffice. Depending on what comes out in the interview, we may be able to go more or we may be able to go less for that, but typically something in that range. And there is a role for discipline in the learning environment, as I think it has to be a tool that shows kids what happens when you step out of bounds or when you break the rules. Then I think there needs to be some kind of restorative justice conversation between Miss Tate and the guilty parties. I think this would go a long way in creating rapport and restoring some normalcy to the classroom, as it is only November and we still have the better part of the school year to get through. Also, in promoting the academic success and personal well-being of every student, Ms. Tate is going to have to meet with me as well. It was stated in the case that, some recommendations were made for her to make her classroom a more enjoyable place. So now we want to make sure that we're supporting her um, to institute better classroom management and really learn how to establish greater rapport with her students. So what I was thinking as we were solving this problem, as I'm evaluating this case, I'm thinking of how we isolate students when we become mere pushers of content, right? Students have told us time and time again they don't want us to hide behind our content. Rather, they want us to see them as people, and they want to interact with us. They want to be able to have a relationship with us. And so when we do that, we isolate kids and it creates a rift in the classroom. I'm also forced to confront the idea of what is the role of discipline in education and how can we use it as a teachable moment. And then what does that look like when you're dealing with high achieving students? And what are the consequences and repercussions for doing that with students and their parents who are very familiar with how to access litigation, especially when it comes to schools. I was further thinking that, as an educational leader, this could be a situation where we have to end up making a new hire in the middle of the year, right? Either because Miss Tate is unable to continue on due to her safety or how she's made to feel. Does she feel supported in this situation? Or is the classroom completely out of control? Some of the things that I was feeling was, on the one hand, I can understand the kids' frustration, right? Those students are saying, look, we're being pushed. We're not being talked with. We're being talked to. And they feel like they don't have a voice. I also want to make sure that I'm supporting good teachers in tough situations like this and offering them the support that they need in order to grow. In this case, I'm valuing, excuse me, the teacher's concern. I want to make sure that she feels safe in her person. I'm also valuing the student's frustration, as well as, setting an example just for the way that we treat people in our building as a general rule of thumb. I think when we look at this, there are some unresolved issues. The first thing is, is there a criminal element involved in this? And are we prepared or do we need to be prepared for litigation? Second, we need to further examine how effective Miss Tate is at what she does with kids and how can we offer her some support to get there. Next, we just don't know how the parents are going to react in a situation like this. I believe that as long as we are communicating what we're thinking and parents are reasonable with that and understanding that a very serious violation has taken place, and we want to make sure that everyone stays safe. I think by acting with integrity first, we conducted a thorough evaluation of the teacher prior to the incident happening and formulated a game plan that was both meaningful and doable. When it comes to acting ethically, we didn't assume that because Mr. Hall was named that he was automatically guilty. And this was an example of great fairness, I believe. And lastly, we We took a look at the website, gathered the information, and gave honest feedback, and then we adhered to proper policies, protocols, and procedures.